Okay, so this is from organizational training. So you're getting high-level $1,000 or $5,000 training. But it's pretty simple. So the modern way of learning. Does my cursor work? Okay, good. Is the normal way of learning is triple loop learning. So there's one loop, single loop here. There's double loop, and there's triple loop. Okay? So what the narcissist does, and maybe what your parent developmental trauma does, is it disables your double loop learning and your triple loop learning. You get stuck and focused on the results or not doing anything wrong. Okay? Are people able to keep up? Twinkies.
Yeah, can you say why we're stuck in there? Well, because we can't get the results because we're in constant cognitive dissonance and we can't ever get the results we need.
You're getting there. So what happens is that normally growing up, you take actions and you see the results. But the narcissist or the abuser, they give you cognitive dissonance right here. See? So they don't let you have insights. They fuck up your insights. That's the norm. They don't let you do double loop. So they give you confusing feedback. They give you more rules and they mess up your frame. So instead of reframing to update your map, they reframe you with confusion. And how do they do that? They make you feel guilty and they make you feel doubt. Okay? Now, the other thing they do, which maybe we'll get to today, is they put you in a state of dissociation. They take away your context. They mess up this third loop. They give you time distortion. They give you a trance state. So 20 years can go by, but it feels like a day or 1 year over and over again because they mess with your perception of time. Because their sense of time is fucked up. We already talked about that earlier. Maybe we'll
Steve, how do they do that? And how do they do that? And why do we let them do that? Why do we give them that power?
That's a good question. Let me write that down.
I think that going around and around in the cycle of abuse causes our time distortion as the victim, as the target. But and they're in the same time loop because they're also in the abuse cycle.
Well, they're lost. Mm-hmm. They're in dissociation. So they just have to drag you into their world. So that's how they do it. Now, why you let them do it is because we're human. We merge with other people. And if you've been groomed by abuser parent or lack of parent figure, you fall into this shared dissociation very easy. So then you lose your sense of self right here. And you can't make sense of anything.
Yeah, I was gonna say the why question almost is a triggering thing for me because it's when I get asked why would you do that? Why'd you do that? Why is this? Why is that? It's a way of changing the subject, changing the topic.
Oh,
that
so
again. Explain that again.
Kurt.
You know, when you ask why do we let ourselves do that, I had that triggering thought, you know, flashing back to my BPDX of the why questions used as a weapon. Like, why would you do that? Why is this? Why is that? And it completely distracts off the real message. We might be talking about, please don't do this. It pushes my buttons or you know, whatever. And then we get down to it becomes like a justify yourself, justify your actions. It becomes some other topic, you know.
That's partially guilt too. So
Yeah.
So how do you know that wasn't just narcissistic injury?
And guilt.
How do you know that wasn't just? How do you know that wasn't just narcissistic injury that you were experiencing, Kurt? Over.
My own narcissistic injury?
Yeah, by them asking you why. I mean, let's assume for 1 nanosecond that you're not a narcissist. And let's assume for 1 nanosecond that she's not borderline, and her asking you why was simply innocuous. Why would you do that? I'm not saying it is or isn't. I'm asking you, but you receiving that message as her questioning you. How do you know that wasn't your sense of narcissistic injury at something that was really innocuous? That's all I'm asking. Over, because I can.
Well, that's not just all you're asking. You could be amplifying doubt right here. So.
I'm just trying to fuck with him because I can.
See?
No,
we're talking about guilt. So now Allison is showing how doubt works. So you just amplify doubt on top of the guilt. So then you feel shame because you don't know what the fuck's happening.
No,
you see how easy that?
I don't feel
how easy it is.
So I can handle this one. I don't get a reactive. I don't need to explode in narcissistic injury by a why question, but I do get triggered when why is attached to extreme emotion and judgment, and when there's an offloading of the other person's emotion onto me that is outsized to the question. If it were a simple question, it'd be one thing, like, oh, why is that? Then we could discuss it. But it's, why is this? Why are you like that? What were you thinking? Like those things become.
That's the exaggerated emotion, which creates the cognitive dissonance because the words don't match the emotional intensity.
Yeah.
That's an invisible cognitive dissonance.
I feel like there's two things that I thought of there. I thought the same way as Kurt, which was like, something that is like easily human corrected, like leaving a door ajar, or something that I would typically do, like leave the door wide open. It's like, why would you do that? It would so like over the top, where anyone else would be like, okay, shut the door and like talk about it, sure, but it didn't need to be like a why, because clearly there's no answer for it. There's no answer other than because I suck, like in the moment.
I actually hate you, yeah.
And it's like, you don't have a comeback because there's really no reason. It's like, why didn't you get the laundry done? Like the only thing
you don't need to have a comeback. Why do you need a comeback?
No, I'm just saying that made me think of that. The other thing is, I know all of us on the other side have been like, especially when you're dealing with someone who's hurt you, when you get to the point where like, how could you have done that? Why did you do that? Why did you do that one thing? They never have an answer. And you're always asking why. You're always asking like, why would they do this to me if they love me, right? So that's kind of where I think.
No.
So there's a copy where you can download a local copy, so we can sort of be more interactive now. So I've uploaded copies in chat.
Yeah.
But there's two whys going on. So there's a why of identity, of what the fuck's going on. And then there's guilt, like saying, the narcissist saying, why are you ruining the whole world? That's amplifying guilt. And then you can amplify more. Allison was a great example of adding doubt. That creates cognitive dissonance. And then so you have this guilt, doubt, and shame spiral, which fucks up your learning. So then you end up doing the same thing for 20 years or 10 years of the same mistake because you're not updating your map and you're not updating your principles. So this would be the more ideal model of updating your map. That's the double loop learning. And that's partially what we're going to try to do today, is trying to talk out and add perspectives. And then so you can have a reality check, update your framing, update your map of the world, so then you don't get as much cognitive dissonance. And then if we can cover some of the narcissist framework, we can make sense of what's going on in the narcissist, we can do triple loop learning. We're expanding our container. We're expanding our sense of self to include their fucked up nonsense of self. So we can make sense of that. So then when they try to knock us off balance, we'll be more centered. We'll be able to control our attention. We'll have a stronger sense of self.
Wow.
So this is the goal of proper learning. If you want to grow up, you have single, double, and triple loop learning. So then you figure things out instead of just looking for a new guru.
I have a question about the time distortion and dissociation. Like, is it kind of like wanting to make time go faster just to get the heck out of whatever the situation is, like childhood, or does that ring true or no?
You can use it to escape, sure.
I definitely think that was the function for me.
Codependents probably use it to escape. I think a narcissist would focus on a goal and try to attack it. So they're more assertive or aggressive, while codependent is more helpless to the environment. So they try to fawn. That would be the Pete Walker strategy.
Or it's just exhausting, and you have kids, and you, like you said, it's the same thing over and over, and you just want to get through this day again.
On the cognitive dissonance, the doubt, what I find is that if you're a polite person or you have manners and there's just a way, things that are right and wrong, and the narcissist will attack that. Like if, for instance, he asked for my password, he goes, give me your password. And I'm like, I don't want to, but all right, you know what, you know, and I did it. And then he did something to use it against me. He went in, or he'll say, hold the door, hold the door for me. I did. And then he threw my stuff out. I'm just saying that
Wow.
there's a rudeness in them. They don't have the empathy. So there's
Right.
There's a rudeness, yeah.
The lack of manners that they feel okay about, like it's to do something really low down when they're asking you like in a friendly way, and then it's to burn you.
No, that's sadistic. That's beyond.
That's a sadistic.
That's
beyond,
yeah. That's like double bind.
Other level.
Yeah. And you lose yourself. You lose your sense of self. Absolutely, exactly what you're saying. And then if you that's the same thing when you were talking about opening up to them. If you as a friend, as a bonding thing, and you open up and it's just gonna be, he'll check it back there, and then it's a weapon. It's a weapon. And then was one other thing. Compliments. If I would compliment him, compliments turn into, they're used against me. So I had to keep, like if I compliment it, I'll say, but you're, or if I'll say something that would make the person feel good, to be a nice, polite person, I'm trying to give a compliment. It would be, but you're this, but so it was used against me. So there's the decency issue. The low road, it's always the low road, real primitive response. There's no high road.
Okay, so let's try to add some framing to why the narcissist exaggerates or does a low road. Is that something potentially entertaining? So Sam Vaknin's going to explain narcissistic abuse, this is a good nuance, but it might be tricky. So,
because narcissistic abuse is total. The narcissist's only way to sacrifice you to the false self is to eliminate your separate existence. The narcissist must annihilate you. The narcissist's abuse is not functional or instrumental, it's existential. You must die so that the false self is gratified.
So the abuse is existential. So your existence as a separate self threatens their false self.
And satisfied. Because if the false self is not satisfied and not gratified, the narcissist will not exist. When you team up with a narcissist, it's either him or you.
Him or you, that's in the narcissist's mind. You're seeing the overreaction over the door or whatever as just one behavior. But in the narcissist's mind, it's life or death.
It's a war to death. One of you must die, at least psychologically. This void, this inner death, is common to victims of complex PTSD and to patients with borderline personality disorder. And it leads to lability, ups and downs, and to emotional dysregulation.
And then let's play this with this clip, power plays. So this is how a narcissist sees relationships. And this is a good red flag for new relationships. If you see that the person dealing with constantly is having a power play, everything is only about power.
Narcissists don't have relationships. They have power plays. It's all about power. All of it is establishing a balance of terror, a matrix of power. The narcissist is trying, in the love bombing phase, to convert you into narcissists, to taste how it feels to get narcissistic supply of this drug, so that you become junkies as well.
That's a hoovering. They're trying to convert you into a narcissist. So they're making you feel super special and unique to get you hooked on supply.
But the minute the narcissist acquires you, hoovers you, the narcissist's message to you is, I don't need you. There is nothing you have that I want, or that I need, or that I cannot get anywhere else.
That's the devalue part. So they're so nice in the hoovering part. They love you, love bomb you, and then suddenly they devalue, and then they're just full on murder, because it's life or death. Whose self is in control, or can I destroy yourself so me and you are similar, empty?
Don't think you have any power over me, because you don't. You do not have power over me. And I can dump you tomorrow and find someone else in minutes. This is precisely the essence of relationships with narcissists. In the first phase, the narcissist tells you how special you are. In the second phase, the narcissist tells you how not special you are.
So how's that fall?
It's weird because like I could see that happening, like I knew it was happening, and I would say that I felt that that was happening, but I continued on anyway, and I couldn't, just saying that, being aware of it didn't stop the emotional attachment from developing.
The bond, yes.
Especially when you doubt yourself and you're like, am I being, paranoid or overly judgmental or something?
Well, yeah, you doubted yourself because you still have cognitive dissonance. Because I think maybe codependents have a tough time with the love bombing and the devalue. How can the same person love bomb you, hoover you, and also destroy you and want to annihilate you? How can this be the same person? Does that cause some cognitive dissonance?
Well, and the other thing is, how can the person that is supposed to love you when you're married more than anybody else in the world, you can't believe that they would do this to you. I mean, and again, now that I know all this.
You can't believe they would do this to you is also the map.
It's like if somebody tells you to believe in unicorns and you're like, well, I've always been taught that this was a mythical thing. And then you're like, how much proof would you need to believe that eventually? Because it's so foreign to you.
Well, and I guess the other thing too that I know I had was when I, told my mother what was going on, her attitude was no marriage is perfect. And there's definitely a 4-generation history of, I realize now, of I bore it, so you bear it.
Yeah, I got that too.
The mothers to the daughters. and there's some kind of sick, perverted joy they get in that. I don't know. But it's really, if my mother had said to me, God, this is horrible, terrible, and awful. And of course, once I got divorced, she's like, I knew Mark was no good. This is what he did. That's what he did. And I'm like, Mom, you never, I asked you. And
Mom is never wrong because she's protecting her face, her false self.
Right. Oh, she's
Mom is narcissist. Mom is narcissist.
Mom is a huge effing narcissist.
Yeah. So why are you looking to a narcissist for your
any
map?
support?
Why are you letting a narcissist update your map or fuck up your map?
I mean, now I don't. Now I get all this, but it's only been the past 2 years that I understand all this crap. And
well, so the first shared fantasy we were in was that our mommies loved us, and they didn't.
Yes, yes.
That's the first shared fantasy.
I mean, I
they
still
fed you, your food.
I mean, I still think my mother loves me. She just can't show it, but maybe I'm wrong.
Okay.
Not if she's a narcissist.
Let's dive into this.
I agree with Holly.
Narcissists don't have relationships.
Think about this with your mom. So if your mom is a narcissist, listen to this framing, okay?
Okay.
Narcissists don't have relationships. They have power plays.
So your mom doesn't have relationships. They're only power plays. If your mom is a narcissist,
she doesn't love you, sorry.
You're projecting the love, but to the narcissist, to your mom, she sees you as a power play. That's how my mom interacts with me. Everything is a face battle. It's always a power play.
Yes, yeah, it's always, and that is exactly what's happening. And because now I'm standing up for myself,
it's still a power play. So I'm trying to update your map to a better expectation. Your old map was she loved you, but she still loves you. If you think she's a narcissist, then it's a power play.
And she's incapable of love, is what you're saying.
Absolutely. I'm saying
that's
correct. Her form of love is a power play, and her form of love is different. So let's switch to that. That was where I wanted to go.
Her form of love is a power play?
No, it's different.
What if you know they don't?
All relationships are power plays for a narcissist.
Yes.
But love is different. Love is shared trauma. This is a clip for that.
In life, we do not learn from experience. We learn from trauma. We learn from our wounds.
So we learn from trauma, but the narcissist keeps the trauma going by disabling the second learning loop and the third learning loop. That's why I put that teaser out there. That'll make sense maybe a month later. Don't try to make sense of the triple loop thing.
Yeah, I'm having trouble putting all the pieces together.
But they fuck up your ability to learn from mistakes, to learn from trauma. And they turn that into intimacy.
Wow.
Talk about that more.
Oh. Okay, so let's replay. Let's get this in and see how this falls.
In life, we do not learn from experience. We learn from trauma. We learn from our wounds. The narcissist is a master. It's recognizing your wounds and you making use of them.
So they do that through cold empathy. So and they're hoovering you. So when they hoover you, they specifically ask questions about your whole life, your likes, your wants, your traumas. And if you share it, they will use it against you because that's what they do. Because it's a power play. That's the definition of their relationship.
Narcissist interferes with your dreams.
And then this is a good teaser.
And resonates with your wounds. And you're making use of them. The narcissist interferes with your dreams.
With your dreams.
And resonates with your wounds.
And resonates with your wounds. How? Because they dug up all your wounds. They researched it. And then they communicate through your wound, through your trauma, through your unfinished learning.
Through your toxic guilt or shame from your own childhood. it resonates with the dark side of the narcissist, maybe. I think that's what Sam said.
Well, that's your trauma bonding.
Abandonment.
Your childhood had trauma wounds from a narcissism, so it feels the same with the new narcissist, right?
And it's always around abandonment. I mean, the narcissist is abandoned, and the narcissist.
Well, that's their inner void. Yes. Sure.
See, can I say something?
Go.
I had like a consecutive relationships where I had similar, like kind of a taste of the same kind of issues, but not it wasn't with a real narcissist or whatever. But I told that to the actual person that I'm here to get help with, and so I laid it all out for him, exactly what I would tolerate and for how long, and why it was that I tolerated certain things. So I made it like so easy for him, and he's like, dude, like, this is me. She's talking about me. And then he decided, I'm gonna hide all of these elements of myself because she had a problem with this person before.
He later acknowledged that he was aware. Like, did you
Yeah.
throw back at your face like, oh, I actually have another month? You said 6 months or like whatever.
No, it was more like, he was like, he decided then he was going to be present a different type of personality and hide his past in order to, he changed his mask to be what I wanted. And he told me, you fell in love with a facade. So, he said it was because he was shamed and I was overly judgmental, but like, I was like, I don't want to get into
his map.
Yeah.
That's his view of the world, not yours. You have a right to have your separate view of the world.
Yeah, I was like, I don't want to be in a relationship with somebody who does X, Y, Z, because this is what happens when I am in a relationship with someone who does those things. So he's like, I do those things. I want to be with you. So I'm just going to lie about who I am. So I kind of screwed myself over by being vulnerable at the beginning.
Yeah, he put the shame on you. He made it your fault that this was going this way, and he had to maneuver around it. Yeah.
That's the guilt. So they're putting doubt and guilt to dump their problems onto you. And
it's like he knows
for a codependent who's been parentified to take on other people's pain.
And you had no boundary in the end. And he knew that.
Well, he knows he's not an appropriate partner for you because he knows he can't give you what he wants, but he can't let you know that. So he becomes what he thinks you want, and then he denies you ultimately what you want and gets you and manages down your expectations so that you don't even ask him for what he knows you would want.
They all say that when they leave. I'm sorry, I just can't love you the way that you need to be loved. I'm sorry, I can't be what you want. They put it on you. They all have. I'm telling you, all of them have.
But
that's the devalue. So
but didn't you say to the young woman, sorry I didn't get your name, with the hood, didn't you say
SJ.
that he said, I love you, but I am that way? So he's actually telling you who he is, but it was your boundary. He presented himself toxic and everything, and yet you said, I want X and this is my boundary, but you didn't enforce your boundary. So you saw it, he didn't take you seriously. And that's why he proceeded to abuse you. And it's sad. I mean, I've been there, but you didn't enforce your boundary because you let him walk right through.
Well, the thing is that it was a gradual process where I became more codependent as I was seeing the patterns that were happening, and I could say that the patterns were happening, and then he would guilt me for seeing that it was happening.
Yeah, and
you codependents are falling into the trap of trying to figure out. You're falling into this loop of more explanation and rules.
Yeah. Give them a boundary and they'll cross it.
Here, you're not getting to your sense of self. You're not updating your map. You're just trying to cover it up. You're trying to understand too fast. You're trying to you're trying to rationalize the narcissist.
Yeah, I was going to say that. We hear a lot of story about this person who isn't even here, and you know.
That's why I'm trying to introduce Vaknin's point of view to show you the irrational side of the narcissist. But it's so hard to digest that. You want to rationalize A to B, this step and that step to make sense of it. But you're not allowing the narcissist to be a predator, to be selfish, to be themselves. You aren't seeing them for who they are.
Right. Yeah. And as Holly said, put a boundary up there, walk right through it, because they don't like to be constrained or told what to do or have boundaries.
No, there's no self there. They aren't deciding to walk through a boundary because there is no self.
Right.
They're empty. No, that's not just right. That's a mind fuck to understand the narcissist has no self, has an inner void. Go watch this.
The narcissist mind is like a hive of bees with hexagons, millions of hexagons. And to each hexagon, the narcissist collects his reflection in her eyes, in her eyes, in his eyes, in his eyes, in her eyes. Collects millions of reflections, and then processes these reflections, puts them in the hexagons. And what happens when there are no reflections? Narcissist feels, when he is not surrounded by people who reflect him, the narcissist feels that he does not exist.
This is what they feel like when they have no supply, because the supply validates their external hive of reflections, which is their sense of self. There is no internal core, stable sense of self. So when you try to do a narcissistic injury by saying they're responsible for doing this or crossing a boundary, they cannot process that because their sense of self is this hive of multiple reflections that holds that's the glue of their sense of self. But that means they're helpless to the reflection. That is their weakness. But the more you're trying to project a sense of self onto them to say they need to be responsible, they should know this and that, they can't process that. That's
because they have no core.
Injury. Yeah. Yes, they're empty.
And you're not mirroring back their worldview, their negative envious worldview. So
that's a different part. That's a separate clip that I'm going to try to lead to. Okay.
Sure.
You remember the technique of withholding? This is connected to this. If you withhold, you don't reflect. If you don't reflect, you threaten the narcissist's very existence. In the relationship with the narcissist, you have 100% of the power.
Now, this is the hard thing. So if a codependent can get this, you have 100% of the power because their sense of self is based on your supply, your reflection. They have no self-reflection capacity, so you hold the cards, but they con you by this.
The narcissist has zero. The genius of the narcissist is to convince you that he has 100% of the power, and you have zero.
So, I want to clarify something here.
Go.
I thought, are we talking about grandiose narcissism, where the person thinks that they are God's gift to the earth, and if that is the case, it doesn't quite jive with what you're saying about the self, because they have a self-image, it sounds like, of them being, smarter and better, and they're just looking for confirmation. And when you try to challenge them, their power image is, sort of damaged or not damaged, or sort of undermined. But I'm not putting that together with this idea that they don't have a self and then they need reflection to sort
That's a common explanation.
They're manipulating you to get the thing.
And then there's a common explanation. But Vaknin is making an argument that the inner world, and he's saying it from a first-person standpoint of view, and getting lots of data from other narcissists' first-person point of view, that there isn't that inner self that you're assuming that then you might be projecting onto them.
Well, but what is the grandiose part then? I mean, the grandiose part has got to be that
that's their false self. False
they don't
self.
believe any of this.
The
Fake
false
self.
the false self that manipulates for the supply.
No, the false self is false. It's false. It's
And
a
therefore
front.
unstable.
It's a
It's
mask.
unstable.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's the hive analogy that's hard to digest. That's why I'm trying to stay here. It's an unstable, constantly shifting. That's why you can't pin it down.
Yeah. I feel like most people have you said the beehive. Perhaps we all have that. Not necessarily how each individual person we know sees us, right? Maybe just like positive reinforcement from people, but we also have negative. So we then ergo remember like, oh, don't lie, or whatever. I don't know what the negative is for everybody, but it's just like those instances that didn't do well with you in life, and from that you grow, right? I feel like they don't
from your mistakes, learn from your trauma. Yes, so they don't
not have the negative, and instead, if they do feel the negative, they flip it into like
blame
other person's
negative.
And what they probably, when they get ghost out, what I'm getting here is, how like they ghost out and like don't talk, because they're trying to figure out which beehive to go back into to pull back out so they can win. Because they're
power play.
It's like, yeah, they're just
every relationship, every beehive is a power play.
Yeah. Ben, so my ex used to be a first sergeant, and so the malignant piece, when I reflect on it, is this: it's a position of power. There's only one of them. Everyone looks up to them. But when all the soldiers have to come to him for help, guidance, whatever, he is all things to all people. And I say to him, wow, Chris, you're amazing. Oh my God, you're just able to help everyone. How do you just know what to say, what to do? Oh my God, you're just so fantastic. Like the idiot that I am. And he said, it's just acting. I just tell them what they want to hear. Wow.
So he owns the mask.
Like fuck. This was 20 something years ago. And I remember this conversation. I was stunned. It's acting. There's no empathy. You're not feeling anything. And he wasn't feeling anything. He was just telling all these soldiers everything in every different situation, being whatever he needed to be at that time in that
get the goal.
Freaking
power
crazy,
play.
Crazy.
Yes.
Over.
Power play.
Yeah, I think it makes more sense to me now in the sense of saying that there's self.
Guy didn't want
that their sense of power is a position of power, and when it's challenged, you're able to, or they are able to move to a different position and to maintain their sense of power, even
because it's a beehive, but you're still you're putting language that there's one core self.
Well,
that's where it's hard for you to understand them, because it's just
but
assume.
But all the selves they're trying to pick and choose are the ones that gives them the position of power, right? Like there is a constant in terms
of the solidity is outside, not inside.
Yeah, they don't have a sense of self. There's no self. That self that you keep saying is not there.
And this is
so try this
external locus of control.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that can be positively or negatively, right? Is that?
It's usually positive. They don't narcissistic injury if you do something that changes upsets them or impacts their worldview in a negative way from this grandiose malignant sense of they are amazing and better and just special, and the rules don't apply to them. If you criticize them, they see it as humiliation. Shit. The more I try to fix him, the more he freaking resented me. It was crazy. I know that now. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Deef. Thank you, Richard Grant.
And Deef, I want to ask you and ask everybody, maybe you can help make sense of something. Many years ago, I was married for 34 years to the raging narcissist. And shortly after we were married, we started having all these problems. And I remember calling my mother and talking to her. And I guess I probably confused whatever she was doing with love. But she said I felt guilty leaving because they had spent so much money on the wedding. And I told my mom what was going on. And she said that if I wanted to leave Mark and come home, that I could, and she wouldn't be mad. And I don't know, I guess maybe I took that as love for my mother, and oh my God, I can come home. And
okay.
then I didn't.
What's the confusion?
To divorce and leave Mark, which was really weird, because why?
What's the confusion?
The confusion.
What's the issue? Get to the point.
Why didn't I leave then?
Because you didn't know any better.
So you had a way out, and
yeah.
Well,
a trap
I don't think
door.
you had a way out. You didn't have a way out because you were going to have to go back to your narc mother.
And that's
well,
true,
mentally.
too. Yeah.
But also the sense of failure. My mother said the same thing after her honeymoon with my malignant narcissist father. She said during the honeymoon, she realized this wasn't going to work, but she had been raised by her aunts, born out by her felt all this, and she couldn't go back because they'd spent all this money on her, and it was such a big deal that she just couldn't go back. I mean, she would have failed, and she couldn't.
Okay, so maybe that's what it was. I couldn't have failed. I didn't want to feel like I had failed, I guess.
Right. Maybe.
This is also common with codependents, that you get stuck in these mental loops of the narcissist says this and that, and you've lost 20 years, and you're going, why was I so stupid, or why this and that. And the downside of all these looping is it takes you out of the present moment.
It's called
all you're focused in.
And
why did I fuck up back then so I don't fuck up in the future? And you forget about now.
My divorce papers signed. Yay.
I maintain codependents are amazing people. We are awesome. We're great. Fantastic.
Okay. Yes, they're great. Let's throw this in here. So we're trying to give you the mindset of the narcissist. We're trying to give you their lack of self. And you're still going to try to rationalize them because that's how you process information. And it's also you want to rationalize your parent. So you have the fantasy bond of that. If you did something right, you would get love from your parent. And you still have that hook.
Well, so for me, I feel like always believing that you're the best is a sense of self. But I guess I understand what you're saying. In the sense that they don't have.
That's how you're interpreting their inner world.
Yeah.
You haven't merged with their inner world to know for sure, have you?
Well, I feel like a bigger part of me is sort of narcissistic for sure, right? Like, and I've definitely had experience of I can change whatever I say in order to be the one who is right and the powerful one.
Okay, so you can play a role. Yeah.
Yeah, and I, like even now though, I think there are people who argue that there's no real self, that you are constantly changing, and it's okay to constantly change and be a different person.
Sure.
No, it's not though, unless you're improving and being better and serving people and being genuine.
Well, and you're assuming they are being a person. Is there a person there? Because then there's no one there.
I'm with Holly. I believe there's no one there. That it's default self is deconstructed. It's the self. It's whoever they've made themselves to be.
It's a taskmaster.
Let's try this part.
If I'm so dissociative that all my hard disk is wiped clean once a year, why would I bother to save files? Why would he bother with advice, with help, with strategies, with coping, with therapy even? Why would he bother with himself? If there's no self, no emotions, no empathy, no ability to interact meaningfully with other people. Nothing there. Just an enormous emptiness and void and deep space and howling winds in a hall of mirrors.
So the start of the video is this, and it's hard.
Is in a state of ontological insecurity.
This ontological insecurity, that means they're sense of time is distorted. They have no continuity, and that's very hard to grasp.
It's when you don't feel continuous, when you don't feel that your yesterday or your today is a continuation of yesterday and your tomorrow will be continuation of today. Obviously, if there is no continuity, it is impossible to develop an identity. The narcissist is possibly the only form of human who has no core, no identity.
So let's stay there. How much does that make sense or not?
There's an identity. It's just all fucked up, right? No one can have.
No, there's no continuity.
No, there's no identity.
We're projecting the identity based on our ability to remember what they do and their patterns of their behavior. There is a personality, there are traits, there are habits, but in their sense of self is just a discontinuous void.
They annihilated themselves. Jesse said in the beginning of the video, it causes annihilation in the target. Why? Because...
Well, no, right there you're saying they annihilated themselves. That is also projecting a sense of self in agency.
Well, as a child, they accomplished complete annihilation of their true self.
It never developed. It
didn't develop.
Yeah.
It's not there.
It didn't develop, so then that's not an agency choice.
Yeah, I fully agree. You know, like I remember watching another video from Sam, and he's like, oh, you know, the narcissists have a really powerful rationality controller, and then a child that's sort of not there. And I have experienced both. You know, like I have definitely experienced the dead child inside of me, and I have personally confronted the all-powerful sort of conscious being inside of me that's the rational controller that didn't care about anything else other than survival and being powerful. So the continuity, the discontinuity I have also felt, but I think so I agree with that part. I mean, my other point about not having a real self is on a whole different level of analysis, I think.
That's fine. This takes a while to sink in, but yeah, sure. We sort of intuitively know this, but we don't want to accept it. Because a narcissist has been showing their cards all along that there's no sense of self, that they're insecure, that whatever, all this stuff. But codependents refuse to see that.
Yeah, totally agree. Guilty as charged.
You project your fantasy onto them. That's why it's a shared fantasy, whatever that French term is.
I said to myself today, I said, I saw him as a prize. And that's really important to acknowledge. That's and nobody could have told me any different. And I knew what he was, but I saw it as a prize, something to be had, you know, something worth having. That's my fault. But I realize that now. So I objectified him.
Well, and I understand that. And I thought I was the luckiest girl in the world when I met Mark and that we were getting married. And that, I mean, it's so effed up. It's crazy. And the fact that my father...
It's not crazy because this...
Narcissist interferes with your dreams and resonates with your wounds. There is no greater intimacy. The narcissist interferes with your dreams and resonates. The narcissist interferes with your dreams. There is no greater intimacy with your wounds. There is no greater intimacy. The narcissist interferes with your dreams and resonates with your wounds. There is no greater intimacy. The narcissist interferes with your dreams and resonates.
He's in your dreams.
There is no greater intimacy.
He's with you in your wounds. You're not alone.
With your wounds.
It's
there
intoxicating.
There is no greater intimacy.
It's amazing.
The narcissist interferes with your dreams and resonates.
It's addictive.
With your wounds. There is no greater intimacy.
No greater intimacy. And it's a trance.
And resonates with your wounds.
It's
there
hypnotic.
is no greater intimacy.
Well,
the narcissist interferes with your dreams and resonates with your
why are you not attacking the codependence now, Deef? I mean, clearly your dreams, the codependent dream and the codependent wounds are weaknesses, are also false selves, right? Like are also external locus of control that the narcissists are using, and are also sort of false images that you want to fulfill with the narcissist's
fantasy, shared fantasy.
Bombing,
yes.
Right? Like
That's
like
the basis of their
Can
appeal.
we?
That's why they're
Holly, Brenda, what? Jump in. Holly.
I wanted to ask, can we tease out this interference of the dreams? Can we get a broader understanding and detail?
This. Okay. Is there a more specific question?
Yeah, what does that mean?
Start?
What does that mean?
Interferes
interfere
with your
dreams?
dreams, your fantasies, your dreams, your expectations, your values.
Well, it's like, why does the love bombing work? It works because you have this fantasy of being special, and then people treating you special this way, and someone think of you as, special in this particular way. But the reality is that we're not. Nobody's that special, but we really want that dream, right? Like, and that's the wound.
The fantasy.
Well,
yes.
And as codependents, are we more susceptible to that because of our childhood wounds? That we fall for that we also have this narcissistic way about us, maybe that we have a grandiosity that wants to be special, and not average.
I don't know about it being narcissistic.
Did I say yes?
Well, remember, certainly codependents want to try to fix the other person, and you're going to take the time, and you're going to take the energy, and you're going to take your ability to believe that you'll be able to fix them, and that's how they can interfere, I believe, how they can interfere with your dreams and your expectations. And that is a flaw of the codependent, to want to try to get at that solution, but it will never occur. It will never happen, and that's how they play around with you.
Oh, this is another trap.
Yeah, because isn't that Pygmalion of us to say, hey, here's my sculpture, I'm going to create you?
Well, I don't think it's actually like that. I think it's more that we try to build up their self-esteem and make them feel better about themselves. And at the same time, we share our weakness with them. And when they find out our weakness, they try to make that their strength. And then they lower the boom and they tell you how lucky you are. And well,
this is what happens, Kurt. I put a sound limit. It doesn't work.
Can I say something? I've been wanting to say for a little while. I think like when you're told how they interact and see other people, and you think, you don't think, oh, they're going to do that to me. Yeah, I think I grew up kind of having crushes on villains all the time. And I thought, I'm just going to be the exception to this person. They're going to let me in. They're going to treat everybody else like that. But I'm going to be let in. And there is kind of a narcissism in that. And also, I know for me, I do have kind of the same Machiavellian kind of understanding of how people work and how to socialize, because I have social anxiety, so it kind of leads into that without the lack of empathy. So I felt like maybe there's some kind of understanding there between us, but then you realize, yeah, you're just like everybody else to them. And I don't know, I just related to the idea of, it being, yeah, you're going to fix them, that you're going to show them empathy in a way that will make you like family. So it will be you guys against the world.
The world.
Yes.
That's amazing fantasy, utopia. Yeah.
That's what they do. I mean, yeah. But Sam said there's a spectrum of narcissism, and we're all on it somewhere. And I believe that. On the far right would be the malignant narcissist. But I really believe from watching Sam that, again, somehow the narcissist resonates with your dark side. Your cluster B personality traits, writ large, you want something that they have, you know, and you get sucked in. You allow yourself to get sucked in, you know. So I think you're right, SJ. You know,
especially if you're always like I've been very vulnerable and like sensitive to things. So it's like, what can I want to learn from this person in a certain way, but then you realize it's beyond anything you imagined in terms of like the moral disappointment that you're gonna have in interacting, watching them play out their life.
Right, because they don't value anybody. You probably have empathy and care deeply about people and are sensitive. They are just using people. And my ex would see my empathy as a weakness. You know, if I'm not getting something from somebody, I'm stupid. Whereas I'd be, you know, I'm doing it because I want to do it because it makes me feel good to do something to help somebody. I'm sure I was getting a narcissistic.
Okay.
But go ahead.
Let's try to dive into this. I know people are going to this agency assumption that you're choosing all this stuff and you can choose better next time. But that's the same trap of the earlier map that no one understands because it's too simple. That you're falling for trying to understand things by reverse engineering and diving into guilt to get a sense of control. But if you get used to cognitive dissonance, expanding your map by understanding their map, giving space to their different inner world, and making sense of things so you can finally find your sense of self instead of your shared fantasy bullshit, then things will work better. You have to get all three realms, not just more rules and more guilt.
Mm-hmm.
But
and this is so hard to do when you're invested.
Well, no, it's not hard to do. It's not doing. It's just staying with the feelings, staying with the loss, and making space for the narcissism, being different. We can't give them space because codependence also cross boundaries. Yes, no?
Exactly, yes. Because, and what causes me to break the boundary is my investment in having,
no, now you're crossing your own boundary because you're saying you're justifying your boundary crossing with some rationalization.
Yeah. No, what I'm doing is
by your trauma wounds.
Yeah, what I'm doing is trying to get what I realize I'm doing is trying to get the shared fantasy back. It's just another way that I'm trying to go back to the shared fantasy.
But that's not the whole story. I'm trying to expand the scope. That's the difficulty of this argument. So we're going to drop this bomb and see if this opens up anything.
Well, okay, I have another one for you. Kurt says that someone can stop being a narcissist. Is this
no one wants to drop the bomb? What? Kurt, Brenda's trying to do a side thing or something.
No, he's saying that people can stop being narcissistic.
Kurt, or Brenda's saying that Kurt said that. Did you say that?
I did.
What does it matter?
I said that all of cluster B, which is just a best guess of how people's minds work, it's a best guess, and any of these things can be recovered from more or less. Personality disorders are not necessarily medical conditions, and it's to say that DSM is something born of measurable science.
Kurt was just throwing some postmodern stuff into the mix. Yes. So what? Why'd you take the bait, Brenda?
Because I feel like the one thing that helps me, and it goes into what we're talking about, which is why it's triggering, is that I feel like there's nothing I can do to change these people. Actually, we've all been told a million times, these people will never change. This is who they are. So somebody, especially that's in the same boat and has been through this, to think that people can change, there's no way they can change.
You can manipulate them.
We wouldn't be here. We would be like, they changed, so we're good. We're good now. Life's a rainbow.
There's no self to change, but you can train them just like a dog.
Well, look at Sam. Sam is self-aware,
But you have to become self-aware, and you have to dive into owning your narcissism to train them. That's not today's topic. That's after you get the foundation. That's advanced and craziness. Ben will teach that, maybe. This is just trying to understand what's happening. So then you have more choices. Right now, codependents assume that you know everything that's happening, and then you're reverse engineering rules to make you feel safe in the future. But your map sucks. Your map is broken. You're stupid.
Thanks, Steve.
No, this is a light devalue. A narcissist would use cold empathy, find all your hooks, and then beat the shit out of you. So, but this is one of the weapons that Sam Backman's starting to talk about. But it's stuff I've been using in this group because I've already researched hypnosis and trance states, and I know the techniques, and I'm trying to use that to help you, but you guys want to rationalize. But let's see if this falls, or how this falls.
When the narcissist interacts with you, he causes you to dissociate.
So the narcissist dissociates you, knocks you off balance. He doesn't need to dissociate you, because you guys dissociate when you go into your stories. It doesn't take work to dissociate a codependent. Come on, right? But when you're dissociated, that's the end. Then what happens?
He does this using intermittent reinforcement, trauma bonding, approach avoidance, verbal abuse, a multiplicity of techniques.
There's tons of ways to dissociate you. That's, pretty easy. Then what happens?
And then makes you dissociate. It's a little like hypnosis. You're under hypnosis. This is especially easy to accomplish with borderlines and codependence.
It's very easy with borderlines and codependence. Why?
Go into this hypnotic trance-like states, even in therapy, because these kind of people transfer the regulation of their emotions and their moods to their intimate partners.
You're more prone to externally regulate, so you're giving up your authority to self-regulate. Or that's all you know. Maybe you aren't consciously doing it, but by definition, you regulate externally, and a narcissist now can take advantage of that door. So that's where Grannon's next course is going to be trying to teach individuation, but he hasn't figured out how to teach that yet. But that's a giant weakness of codependence, that you externally regulate, and that's what you're doing in this group when you're trying to make sense of things by getting other people to validate you with a cookie story, because you're continuing to use other people, crossing other people's boundaries to self-regulate your bullshit. But by doing that, the narcissist can now hypnotize you and destroy your life for another 20 fucking years. So that's why it's hard to sell this, and that's why I'm trying to point this out.
Deep, just the way that you're saying that is really hard to hear.
Yeah, can you say it again?
It's true.
I need to hear it again. It was just, you said it so fast. I'm trying to take it in because it's
as a codependent or borderline, by definition, you regulate externally. You use other people to regulate your emotions.
Okay, stop right there.
Give me an example. How do you do that?
Let me ask first, would that be if you had a malignant parent who always made the decisions for you, and you didn't even know they were malignant, but you just kind of, they always told you how to do everything? Would that be how you would end up like now?
If your parents always made the decisions for you, they took on all the risk. So they're regulating the danger of the decision making.
Okay, what about culturally? Culturally, in a patriarchal society where, again, you're a female and all the decisions, let's say, just hypothetically, Catholic culture, men, no separation of church and state. So you're a second-class citizen anyway. Would that be part of it? Could it be?
Culturally, there's codependent training. Our education system teaches you to just trust authority, delegate to the person in charge. Also externally regulating.
Thanks. No further question.
So
Cheryl.
Yeah. So two things. When you have like a mom that makes all the decisions for you and you're not allowed to make decisions, what does that do? And then also, I'm trying to understand about that self-regulating by using other people. They externally self-regulate.
Okay, so can I read this? Most codependents have an external locus of control, meaning that they think external factors are the cause of what happens to them and how they feel. Codependents expect and hope that change will come from the outside or some other person. Their focus and power are outside of themselves.
Okay. Does that help?
Where are you reading this from? What book is that?
I just Googled codependents have external locus of control, and that came up for me.
Is that why I sought out the group?
And I'll put the link here.
That's a trap of these groups. They'll
So it's
enable this external regulation. And that's why I'm trying to co-opt that by pointing it out. But it's very difficult to hold the space of not letting everybody self-regulate each other.
So we just proved the point.
You mean regulate on each other?
Yeah, that
use,
too.
Use each
Yeah,
other.
that's
Use
probably
each
more
other to
accurate.
self-regulate. Yeah.
You're using each other.
Can you give an example? I'm trying to understand. I guess
You've been seeing it constantly in this meeting. Everyone's trying to regulate on each other and give fixes, and you're doing it. You're masturbating on each other all meeting.
I guess this is what I've done for 61 years, that it seems normal. This doesn't seem normal.
This is constant crossing of boundaries feels totally normal to you.
But I don't even see how we're crossing boundaries. It's so sad.
It's terrifyingly sad and pitiful. Yes. But it takes some time. See, that's also your self-regulation. You want me to give you an answer so you understand this right now. But this is 30, 20, 40 years of not seeing it. You can't get an answer based on your fucking demand. Understanding doesn't always come based on your fucking whim.
Yeah. Well,
you might need to do homework. You might need to meditate. You might need to do emotional literacy. You might need to work to figure this fucking out. I had to fucking work to to get this stuff to present it to you, and I'm still fucking failing. I just can't demand you to understand this shit.
I have a pile of books by my bed. Hi.
So, am I right in thinking this is something like, don't do the speed up hands. I'm thinking that, okay, so an issue is, okay, previously, my world is shattered. We're in a fight. He's not talking to me. I'm not going to feel good until he acts, or until this happens, or until I whatever. And so I'll press it, push the button, go to work, be in my head, crying at my desk. And the minute that it changes, then life is perfect again. Life is perfect. I don't even remember the last 20 hours because everything is great. And it doesn't matter if it's a relationship, or it could be a fight with a friend. It could be a problem at work that you're perceiving that's like crazy. And then the moment that like some external factor makes that better, then all of a sudden it's roses again. And
it's fine. It's beautiful. Yeah.
So that's
sounds like an addict.
It's every day.
You got your fix, isn't it? You have opiates. Use opiates instead.
I'm not going to use opiates. I'm just not going to do it anymore.
Codependents are addicts as well as narcissists.
Because it's beautiful. It's
the narcissist interferes with your dreams and resonates with your wounds. There is no greater intimacy.
No greater intimacy.
With your dreams and resonates
no
with
greater intimacy.
There is no greater intimacy. The narcissist interferes with your dreams and resonates with your wounds. There is no greater intimacy. The narcissist.
Well, so I just want to concur that in some ways it is no greater intimacy, right? Like, because I have a 7-year-old boy and a 5-year-old girl, and the intimacy between them and me as their father, like it almost feels like there's no greater intimacy in that level of sort of dependence. And they love me so much because I help them to regulate their emotions, make them really happy, and when they're sad, try to teach them how to regulate. But mostly I help them to regulate. And yeah,
you're very important. Yeah,
right. And
that feels great.
And that's what narcissist feels like to you, perhaps. right? Like you have a codependent who's like, oh, I want the love. I want you to affirm my specialness and importance. And a narcissist like me to my kids, I mean, I could potentially think, oh, I can manipulate how they feel, and they would just believe me, and I can probably imagine ways to do that. And in fact, I probably do know the ways to do that because I grew up, being manipulated that way, right? Like, and I do that in my daily life too, in my work, perhaps, as I discussed in the past. But a different. Okay, you want to keep on going. The point I want
summarize.
No. Actually, I'm going to the next point. The next point is that we're looking for a different type of intimacy, right? Like, we're not looking for the intimacy between a child and a parent.
No, we're looking for this.
The narcissist interferes with your dreams and resonates.
No greater intimacy.
There is no greater intimacy.
Boundary crossing, dream invading, no greater intimacy.
So what is the greater intimacy that we are looking for?
No, there is no greater intimacy.
We
Having
found it.
shared wounds and bleeding on each other, that's so intoxicating. Though Jacqueline says that Prozac and Xanax might be better. So use drugs. Getting to know yourself. Maybe that could be it, but you have to get through your wounds first. But that's because we're running out of time, and I wanted to help you regulate then, because if you dysregulate, you'll trigger somebody else, which will trigger somebody else, and trigger somebody else, and it'll be hard to wrap up.
So are you saying we just have to own it, accept it and just own it and stop trying to look for reasons to rationalize it?
There's no fucking rush. You've already wasted your life on the narcissist. What's another 6 months to figure something out? Why are you guys in such a hurry?
We want reasons. We don't want to look into ourselves and say,
yes, that's why you don't want to look into yourselves. Go look into yourselves. It's beautiful in there. After you sort through all the weeds and the ghosts and the scary stuff, and you get into your core, it's beautiful in there.
It's hard to figure out how to repair yourself, repair yourself from trauma.
There's nothing broken.
I mean, maybe it's just your attitude,
Yes, your attitude is broken because you've taken on the narcissist and everybody else's wounds, because codependents love to be pain suckers. You just look for pain to suck and things to fix.
That's why instead of being like, this is bad because this is happening and this is bad because X, the weather is shit, so this is bad, so I can't. It's more like we have to.
It's fine.
Positivity.
The world's collapsing, but a new world is coming. It's beautiful. Enjoy the train wreck. Exactly. What's the hurry? Enjoy the jazz. Enjoy the zigzag roads.
Bless you.
It's fine.
Thank
Cookie.
You.
Have a pie. Eat more pie.
Yeah, you didn't say cake.
I remembered the pie versus cake war.
I'm curious if about my core self and whether I have one, if I am so hell-bent on finding somebody to fix. I mean, how much of a self do I have? What's up with myself?
You should investigate that. Mm-hmm. That's a good question. Maybe you should write it down, sit with that. Journal. Do I have a self? How do I define myself? What's important in my life? What are patterns? What am I fixated on?
I find it so hard.
Yes, it's very hard.
So hard because you have to search around for what you enjoy, and then you construct an identity about all of these things that don't seem connected, that you randomly find yourself actually getting excited about. And I'm trying to do that now, and it takes a lot of time. Sorry.
Yeah, but it's beautiful. You're having intimacy with yourself, and as you get to know your likes and dislikes, you can now dance with that.
Because I've been in consecutive relationships over and over again, and I take on
another person.
Yeah, there are bits and pieces that I'm glad I took, but I'm in a phase now. I just don't want anybody like in my life, and I'm not used. I haven't been single since I was 19.
It's scary.
Well, and one of the things too that I read somewhere, and I just think this is really true, that when you have been in these narcissistic relationships, and there's the highs are so great and the lows are so low, but when you find
narcissist interferes with your dreams and resonates with your wounds. There is no greater intimacy.
No greater intimacy. Yes, highs and lows, but no greater intimacy.
When it's somebody that's, I'll say, normal, that's not
boring.
Yeah.
Dull.
Right. Boring. Exactly. Boring.
Work.
And that's
lifeless.
Yeah.
Gross.
You have to retrain yourself. I mean, there are.
No. Stop fucking training yourself. Oh. Stop fixing yourself. Do what SJ's doing to discover herself. Don't fall into the codependent trap. Well, she's just at the gate, so she hasn't figured it out, but she's starting to go in that direction of getting to know yourself. And it's terrifying at first.
Yeah, scary.
And they tell you not to date for a while, get to know yourself. If you haven't been single since you were 19, you might need a bit of time to just be alone with yourself, to know who you are.
We can have a singles girl party. I'm working on like my 5th month.
I'm not a girl. I'm
in life ever. It's exciting.
5 months.
I haven't connected with women. I really just, I want to become I'm like, can I go into witchcraft and get a coven or something? That's my new focus now.
Start a meetup.
I want to go, in the middle of the night, naked around a bonfire.
TMI there, girlfriend, TMI.
Don't interfere with my dream.
Better fantasy.
Go get naked, take the risk.
Okay. Wrapping up. Takeaways. Last minute questions. What made sense? What didn't make sense? What's annoying?
Summarize what we missed when we talked over each other ad nauseum. Summarize it for us what we're missing, Deef, please.
What you're missing.
What you want us to get. You felt frustrated enough that we were looking for excuses. We're looking for reasons to rationalize.
You're not in control, and no one's coming to save you. And it doesn't fucking matter. Everyone's gonna die. There's no fix. There's no fucking emergency.
So here's my takeaway. If narcissists have been interfering with my dreams since I was a child, do I have any dreams?
That's worth meditating on.
That's great.
The narcissist interferes with your dreams and resonates with your wounds. There is no greater intimacy. The narcissist.
No greater intimacy, but it's also an invasion. It's also incest, emotional incest. And that's the only relationship codependents know how to have. Emotional incest.
I disagree with you, Deef. I think that there is somebody there that can save us.
Okay.
Ourselves. And I don't mean that in a, I think that's why we're here. I think that's why we're listening to this, because we want to help ourselves and we don't know how. And I'm not saying, it's going to take time, but I do believe, every time I listen to this, I learn something. And sometimes it takes me a long time to put it into practice. And, but I do believe that we can help ourselves. And that's when we start really looking that we are the ones that need to help ourselves and stop relying on other people to help us. That's when we begin to change. And that's why we're all here, is trying to help us get better.
I would agree that you have a higher sense of agency or self-autonomy. I think you're overreading the rest of the group.
No, ring the bell. Ding, 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 ding.
Well, and so for me,
No,
it's been
Allison also has a high sense of autonomy, but
No.
most of the people merge.
So Richard Grannon, and maybe you can cover this at some point, talks about integrating healthy superego, which is basically reparenting. We reparent ourselves. So I have to give myself, I have to help myself with a parent within me develop the dreams that I have for my life.
Yes, but who is that I who's managing that?
Yeah, she's about 15 years old, so but she's better than a 7-year-old, I suppose.
Yes,
That's better than a 7-year-old.
Go start a relationship with that person.
Yeah.
And oh, that's a good closing thing. Let me find that.
Hey, Deep,
any other takeaways?
Another good takeaway, what I think we lost was the discontinuity aspect, which would be a weakness of the narcissist. Some examples I've learned in doing better in communication. If you can when you email or when you have written communication, the timing that they will get lost in, you will easily find contradicting around the same topic, and they will talk out of both sides of their mouths. And if you stun them with that revelation, you actually can throw them off and get a chance to stop them in their tracks. So I thought the discontinuity conversation that came up earlier might have gotten lost, but I thought it was an important thread as a takeaway. Over.
That's good strategy. So you were able to take that and you said, oh, because they're discontinuous, they're going to be contradictory in email communication and other stuff, and you can use that in legal proceedings or gotchas if you're patient and you have the memory capacity. Yeah, good point. So this is something new from Richard Grannon, since we haven't had him visit.
I want you to develop the skill of talking to yourself.
Talking to yourself?
Because I think that this is a cornerstone of sanity and self-protection.
Not just something to do, it's a cornerstone. And who's talking to who?
Out loud, if you've got the privacy, I don't see why not. If it helps you to think it through, you could take notes, you could journal the questions that you're asking yourself.
Okay.
But when I say talking to yourself, you want part A and part B to be able to have this conversation. I'm asking you to go for context, not content, predominantly.
Context, that's loop 3, the bigger picture, not these tiny rationalizations. The big picture, what the fuck is going on? Why am I doing this? What's going on? Who's here? What the fuck's happening? Context.
You want to be strong, you want to be asking the question. That's what philosophy is, it's dialogue. You want to be talking to yourself, which is what thinking is.
That also helps you think.
It's a question and an answer a protocol system. Ask a question. So you'll have just asked yourself, is it really? And then another part of you goes, oh, I suppose it is. Right? You just did that. Question and answer. That's what thinking is.
So there's Richard Grannon's tips. Learn to talk to yourself.
So
instead of ordering yourself around and fixing everybody else, have a dialogue with yourself and have dialogues with other people. Yeah, Ben.
So just to add to that, I think Deef, you were saying, oh, the everybody's gonna die, what's the big hurry? What's the big importance? I think what you're pointing to is obviously a sort of a moral philosophy, right? And to get to a point where you are self-sufficient, where you understand your meaning, or perhaps you feel your meaning, or you feel your purpose, you need to have dialogue with history, which just means past philosophers, and reading more broadly than just the psychological literature and the YouTube videos. You could have dialogue with other people who are on the same journey, and in fact, that's most often how you avoid one of the key issues with the looping, which is you have a false self that don't have a good perception of reality, and you have other people as a way to sort of check your reality. So you need to talk to yourself, talk to history, and talk to other people who are on the same journey.
As long as it's not too much emotional incest. Though it's probably feels good, but
I'm trying to understand what emotional incest is.
you don't get that?
No.
Can someone help Cheryl?
I don't get it.
It's where, well, it's where, like Mordeef was saying, if one of us, I'm sure I've done it, positive, where it's like, I have a thought, I have a feeling, I think it's this way. And so we present it and wait for somebody to agree with us. And we'll keep going until someone does, because we think we're right. Because for whatever reason, we need to be right in that moment and talk about it.
No, you don't think you're right. You need somebody else to validate you're right. That's why you need to manipulate somebody else to give you validation, because you have doubt.
There was a
And
story
you can
that
learn.
Go ahead.
I was going to say you can learn non-defensive responses in order to break that connection and stop at the right boundary marker to help the other person be able to do their own self-regulation.
And this is all very...
Emotional incest has to do with parenting. Emotional incest is a type of abuse in which a parent looks to their child for the emotional support that would be normally provided by another adult. The effects of covert incest on children when they become adults are thought to mimic actual incest, although to a lesser degree. It's when our parents parentified us. It's when we became our parents' parent, when they were supposed to be parenting us.
Well, and yeah, and that's exactly what my mother did.
Yeah.
She would keep, you know, going on and on until you agreed she was right.
Where did you find? We share the link.
Okay.
Oh yeah, share the link.
So messed up.
Google cheater.
It's so sick.
That just like A-bombed me. So.
Oh, too many bombs today. Is that good or bad? Closing comments before we formally end the formal session.
Nobody's coming to save you. Nobody's coming to save you. We want to be the best slave that master has ever had. We want to be the best slave that master has ever had. We want to be the best slave that master has ever had.
With your dreams and resonates with your wounds.
I just want to say thank you.
Aha. Thank you. And thanks for your contributions, SJ, for being so vulnerable and sharing a lot of personal stories. Very brave. Yeah.
Yeah. People were very nice.
Oh, people were nice. I thought they were having incest on each other.
Stop being mean, please.
Or masturbating, that's said.
Masturbating? Masturbating isn't a bad thing.
Not going to masturbate with this group. Sorry.
That's a good closing statement. Let's stop the recording on that.